Hello, thank you so much for coming along and being here today. I'm here to talk about how to spot the next big thing. Although I have to tell you that I'm not going to put your money at risk. I'm not going to try to describe a big new startup or anything like that. I'm not trying to sell you the next Uber. I'm trying to point to what will be a big social change, something that we'll all be talking about in 5 years or 10 years from now, and we'll look back and say, why did we ever not think that was important? Why did we ever not think that that was something so obvious it was in front of us? Because the next big thing has three characteristics about it, and these are the important things. It appeals principally to the young. It appeals to the children, the teenagers, the people who have an appetite for play. It puzzles the older generation because they look at the younger people using it and they think, why are they doing it? They're not interested in using it. They're not interested in using it at all. They don't see the point. It just seems a waste of time to them. And it employs capabilities that are inherent in the device. The children use it. They can see the potential in it. But for the older generation, they don't understand it. And yet, the possibilities have always been there in the device. It's just been waiting to be unlocked. So where should we look for this next big thing? Well, the first thing to say is that mobile is the only platform that matters when we're looking for this. If you think that the desktop is important, that somehow something's going to happen on the PCs, it's true there are 1.5 billion PCs around the world, but the PC and the desktop is dead as a place for where the next big thing will happen. If you want to understand this, just think back to when the last big thing was that happened on desktop, the last big application where everyone said, oh, you really have to try this out. You really must get a hold of this. Yeah, you have to see what it's like. I'd say the last one, for the last two, in fact, they both happened almost at the same time. They were Spotify and Dropbox. Spotify, the music system, and Dropbox for file sharing. And they both happened around autumn of 2009. And everything since then, all the big apps, all the big things that people talk about, the Instagrams, the WhatsApps, the Ubers, the Snapchats, those have all come since that time. They've all been on mobile. And there's a simple reason why. It's because everyone has a mobile phone. And these days, more than 2 billion people have a smartphone. The smartphone is personal. Everyone carries it with them. Look at this picture of all the people holding up their mobile phones. I bet everyone who's here today, you've all got your smartphones with you. If I asked you all to hold them up, you could do it right now if you wanted to. It might be distracting, but hey. So mobile is the only platform. That's the place to look for it. So to understand the next big thing, I think it's important also just to look back at some of the previous big things and understand those. So the first big thing was text messaging. It was a capability that actually used resources in the phone that were sort of left over. It used 160 characters. It used a little data stream that was available once the phone had told the network where it was. And the carriers deployed it. They didn't think it would be very important. But it turned out that text messaging was really great for kids. Kids were the ones who found it. Kids were the ones who were the first to use it in a big way, because the kids were the ones who didn't have the money to pay for phones on contract. Text messaging could only really take off once children got their hands on phones, and that couldn't happen until the pay-as-you-go phone was available. The phone you didn't have to get on contract, the phone where you could just pay for as many calls or as many texts as you actually made. And so that meant that text messaging couldn't take off until 1999, which was the sort of time when the mobile phone, pay-as-you-go, got really big. There was an explosion in sales of pay-as-you-go phones in 1999, especially in the UK, and text messaging took off. It was so personal, and yet the older generation, the people who were using their mobile phones to make phone calls, just like they did with their old landlines, they couldn't understand what it was about. They couldn't understand text speak. They couldn't understand why kids were doing this thing all the time, sending all these messages, doing all these things with their thumbs. They couldn't understand the T9 text language, how to make a phone, what OMG was, or LOL was. And here you see the global SMS volume, the way that it is just ramped up enormously. And yet, here's the interesting thing. It looked like until 2011 it was going to be exponential growth, that it would just be the most enormous thing in the world. And yet, suddenly, 2011 was the peak. 2012, it started to fall off. Why is that? It's because another generation came along. The kids who had been kids in 1999, by 2011, 2012, they're all sort of pushing 30. They're all starting to have their own kids. They're getting old. Now another generation of kids who were born at the time when they were buying their first phones, they've all come along. They're the ones who are starting to use different apps. They're getting smartphones. They're starting to use WhatsApp. They're not using the same systems that their parents did. They're using WhatsApp and iMessage and BBM. And so texting becomes an old thing. It becomes the thing that their parents did, that the older generation does. They do something new. So they use a different method altogether. So SMS was the big thing, and then it fell away. The other big thing, I think, is the selfie. So here's the earliest known use of the selfie according to the Oxford Dictionaries. They found it back in an Australian forum online in 2002. Now, the idea of the selfie, the self-portrait, isn't new. You can find the old masters doing self-portraits going back to the 15th, 14th, however long you want to go back. Buzz Aldrin did the first selfie in space on one of the Apollo missions in the 1960s. But that wasn't the idea that we have of the selfie. The selfie is something that's done with the mobile phone. It's done with the capabilities of the mobile phone. Particularly, it's done with the front-facing camera of the mobile phone. So I was interested in this idea about the selfie as this sort of accidental big thing. And so I looked at Flickr, the photo sharing site, and I looked at the number of photos that were tagged with selfie over years. So I started back in 2000, a lot of them. And I was a bit puzzled by this, and I figured actually it must be because of the millennium. And given that Flickr didn't actually start until 2004, you can see a lot of people were looking at their old photos, uploading them to Flickr and tagging them with selfie. So that's not quite it, because you can see in 2002 that first use of the word selfie. These are old photos that people are uploading. In 2005, Flickr was bought by Yahoo, and it became really big. Lots of people began using it. And now we move forward a few years, and look at that growth. It's just gigantic. It's the same sort of growth that you see in the text message, this enormous sort of exponential growth. But just go forward a couple more years. If you think the selfie is big there, we look at it now. By 2014, it's gigantic. They're heading on for about 400,000 photos tagged on Flickr with the word selfie. And the grey bar there is my sort of rough estimate of how many there might be, because there is, 375,000 by the end of last month. It looks like the selfie is not getting so big on Flickr. Why would that be? Well, I'll come to a reason for that. But if you look at the Google News trends and the Google search trends for selfie, it's really interesting. You can see that there's not a lot of interest in it until suddenly in 2013. It takes off. Everyone's interested in the selfie. I think it might have been, some of those peaks may have been to do with the famous selfie that Obama took with the Danish Prime Minister at the Mandela funeral. Everyone was talking about the selfie there. It was peak selfie. And if you overlay this graph onto the Flickr graph, then you get quite an interesting sort of shape of the way the interest in the selfies is going. So the selfie has become this thing that people have got so interested by, and yet it looks like it's passing its peak. Could be. But I think actually what's happened is that people have just moved on from Flickr. Again, we're going back 14 years here. All the kids who would have been on Flickr at the beginning, they've all grown old. And the kids who were young in 2010 and got their smartphones, they're not going to be using Flickr. They're going to be using Instagram. But I couldn't search Instagram to get the data. But you bet the selfie is giant on Instagram. So these are a couple of big things already. SMS, sending messages, it's personal, it goes between people, it's so intense. It's a way of expressing something. The selfie, we're publishing photos of ourselves. Everyone is a celebrity in their own selfie. And if you look around these days, if you go to a big event like a rock concert or a big tennis game or something, and you see all the people afterwards, and they want to talk to the stars, what do they actually want to do? They don't want to get autographs like they used to a few years ago. What they want to do, they want to do a selfie with the celebrity to prove that they were there. It's so much more personal, so much more capturing the moment than an autograph ever was. So when you think about this, the selfie and the text message, they're so personal. What is it that the phone brings that we can take and sort of think of as another big thing? Well, the phone is so personal. It knows so much about us. Our phone knows where we're going. It knows who we talk to. It knows who we message with. It knows what we take a picture of. It's the most intimate device ever. We tell it everything. Why is it that it's not used for the other intimate thing? Sex. And you think about it and you go, oh, actually, yeah, that happens already. You've got an app like Tinder. There are all the matching apps, the things where people are able to find someone. You upload a selfie onto Tinder. You put a few details in, and all the guys swipe right because they want the girls to get with them. And the girls are much more choosy, and they choose who they want to be with. And if it finds a match, then it tells you how close it is. It's using all these capabilities inherent in the device. There are billions of swipes on Tinder every day. There are millions of matches made every week. That means we're going to have Tinder babies. You're going to have children who are created through an algorithm on smartphones. Two smartphones getting together. What a weird idea that is. And yet, that's what's happening. That's the selfie. That's the way that, that things are developing. Sex is a sort of new big thing on phones. But if we want to look forward even further and think about new big things that are to come, well, like I say, it's inherent in the device. It just needs to be unlocked. It's probably going to be the children of today who are going to find it. We just don't know quite where to look. So for my suggestions for where to look, what are the capabilities that are there which might actually make this big difference? Well, there's this new capability in phones. This is a photo. This is actually a selfie of someone else. And it's a photo which is refracted through the lens of Google's Deep Dream software. It's neural networks, it's artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's a machine which is able to think almost. It's able to recognize the things that make you, you. So you can show it a photograph of a beach and it'll say, oh yeah, that's a beach. You can show it a picture of a desert and it'll say, oh, that's not a beach, that's a desert. And it knows the difference between the two. And it can categorize things. You show Google Photos all your photos, and it will be able to pick the baseball parks out from the cricket fields, and it'll be able to tell you which ones are the beaches and which ones are your friends. Facebook is already able to tag all the people in your photos. You don't have to tell it who they are. It's able to do that. Artificial intelligence capabilities, like Apple's Siri, like the Google Now capability that says, oh yeah, you should leave for your meeting now because there's a lot of traffic. You need to get there earlier. And Microsoft's digital Cortana, all these capabilities, they're on the phones already. They're growing, they're getting better and better. And you have to believe that in 5 years' time, it's going to be even bigger. That the capability just of the phone alone is going to be so much more than it is now. And if you think that's not true, just go back 5 years. Think how dumb your phone was. Siri hadn't been introduced to people in those days. And just think 5 years ahead how much smarter your phone is going to be. Artificial intelligence is going to be one of the things, I think, that will unlock a new big thing. Another element, I think, is going to be health. Your phone knows what you're doing. It knows when you're standing. It knows when you're sitting. It knows when you're moving about. It knows what your heart rate is. If you attach something like, your watch with a heart rate monitor or just a fitness band, your watch will tell your phone what you're doing. And your phone should be able to say, hey, your heart rate is really elevated. What is it? Are you giving a TED talk? Are you very ill? What's going on? I'd expect my phone to know more about me, to be able to tell me if I'm looking like I'm not well. And then there's another capability which is really interesting. This is so close, so on the tips of being a huge thing. Virtual reality. This is Google Cardboard, which is literally a piece of cardboard. You print out the instructions from Google, take a piece of cardboard, fold it, put your smartphone in, and it will, running the right software, you're able to immerse yourself in a different experience. And the phones are already capable of doing this. Imagine someone who was in the future sending something like a Tinder profile where instead of just looking at a picture on a screen, you're able to put on a sort of a virtual reality goggles and you're able to walk around them and see what they look like and perhaps even talk to them. That's a sort of capability that virtual reality brings. I think these are all the sorts of capabilities that are inherent in the phones, and yet we're not quite sure which of these and in what combination it's going to be that will make the big difference. And that's because the next big thing is a puzzle. It's not a mystery, it's a puzzle. And the difference between a mystery and a puzzle goes like this. Only one person knows the answer to the mystery. So when you have a murder mystery, that's because one person did the murder, and they're not telling who it was. Whereas with a puzzle, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. All the pieces are there. All the pieces are ready for you to make the final picture, to fill in the gaps. It's just a question of putting them together. So the solution is right there, looking at you. And I think it's the same with our phones. It's the same with the next big thing. The next big thing is waiting, just there. It's there to be found. But the sad thing is that possibly it's not going to be any of us in this room who will find it. It's going to be the children playing around with the capabilities of these new phones. And yet, the other strange thing is, think back to that example with the selfie, where the person in Australia in 2002 used the word. So that's 13 years ago, and yet it's taken until now for that word to become so common. That word that was used by one Australian just in a sort of thrown-off way, and yet it's really common now. If you think about that, if you imagine the next big thing is even 5 years away, then that word to describe it must already be in use. It must have been used somewhere. That's just the way that words work. People pick them up and they start to develop them. They start to use them. So just as the selfie was around 13 years ago, I'm sure the word that describes this next big thing is already being used. It's already bouncing around somewhere. Again, we'll know it when we see it, just like the jigsaw puzzle. You see where the pieces fit when you see it afterwards, but you don't quite understand it until the puzzle is put together. And the other point that has to be made is there's only one place to look for it, and that's in your mobile phone. Thank you.